engineer at the center of the deadly 2015 Amtrak derailment is set to go on trial today.
A jury will now decide the fate of Brandon Bostian, who was behind the controls when Amtrak Northeast Regional Train 188 crashed back on May 12th of 2015. 8 people died that night and more than 200 were injured. The train was traveling from Washington, D.C. to New York City when it jumped the tracks while going 104 miles per hour around the Frankfurt curve, more than twice the 50-mile-per-hour speed limit. Amtrak reached a $265 million settlement in 2015. Bostian faces charges including involuntary manslaughter and reckless endangerment.
It has been a long 7 years, so what can we expect? Analyst Bruce Gordon joining us with some answers. Good to see you, Bruce. I know you were there from the very beginning. You were also in Washington for the NTSB report. This has been anything but a straightforward case. Bostian initially faced charges. Those charges were dropped, now reinstated. As I mentioned, a long 7 years. Take us through the process as to why.
Yeah, this was a case that the local district attorney's office under then DA Seth Williams declined to prosecute. The case was reinstated and it has gone back and forth throughout the court system for the last several years. Ultimately, the Superior Court said essentially these questions of whether this is a weak criminal case or a strong criminal case should be answered by a jury at trial rather than a judge determining ahead of time that there should be no trial. So that's how we got to the trial itself, which jury selection today expected to get underway.
So a jury will now decide whether this was a mistake or a crime. A mistake because Bostian thought he was actually further along the track than he was.
Yeah, and look, Thomas, that is absolutely huge. One of the things that I've complained about from the very beginning on this case is the lack of context. We understand this situation from the standpoint of folks who drive motorcycles or cars or trucks. And when we hear 106 miles an hour, and that was the speed he had accelerated to before hitting the brakes at the absolute last second to get down to 104, as you just referenced, when you're doing 106 miles an hour in a 50-mile-an-hour zone, we think as a driver of a car, a truck, a motorcycle, and we say, well, obviously that's reckless. That's completely unconscionable to be doing more than twice the speed limit and more than 100 miles an hour. But here's the context. This is a train. And because it's a train, the speed limits are different. And if you look at the route along that Northeast corridor coming out of Philadelphia, heading up to New York, shortly after that curve, the speed limit actually rises to 110 miles an hour. In other words, if Bostian thought he was already beyond that curve, and remember, we know he was in a position where, as the NTSB ruled, he had lost situational awareness. He was clearly distracted. They believe he was distracted by radio chatter regarding rocks being thrown at trains that night. A SEPTA train, in fact, had been hit in the windshield earlier that evening. He was distracted. We know that. He wasn't drinking, wasn't using drugs, wasn't on his phone. So there's none of that here in a criminal setting. What we know is he was distracted. If he thought he was farther along, then that 106 miles an hour not only isn't outrageous, it's completely in line with the speed limit of 110 miles an hour through that straightaway that followed the curve. And that has been missing from the vast majority of the coverage in this trial, in this case.
And the NTSB report did show that he tried to apply the brakes seconds before the crash. This was a fairly new route for him, but he had received extensive training. He had to memorize the route, the characteristics, the scenic characteristics of this route. So what evidence, Bruce, will be presented? I'm sure the NTSB report will weigh heavily that he was disoriented.
Yeah, and that's obviously something the defense will certainly bring up. We don't know whether Bostian himself will testify. What we know so far is that he has basically said, I don't remember much about what happened that evening, either before or in the immediate aftermath. We do know that he had some awareness of what was going on after the fact. It's certainly not surprising that someone might be jogged by the shock of what happened into realization of where they were and what was going on. But Bostian is not apparently in position to be of much help for his own cause. Again, we just know that he was disoriented and had lost situational awareness, which in that context would seem to indicate that he did not know where on the tracks he was. And again, if he was farther along than he actually, if he thought he was farther along than he actually was, that would completely explain that 106 miles an hour. And that then suddenly removes that, oh my gosh factor from this. And again, Brian McMonigal, the defense attorney, is a highly skilled litigator. I don't doubt for a minute he will hammer that theme. But don't look at this as a driver think of this from a train perspective, and you'll realize that this behavior was not nearly so outrageous as you might assume.
So I
we'll
would
see
imagine,
what happens. Obviously, the jury has the final word.
Absolutely, they do. I would imagine the defense would make this a greater issue about safety, some of the safeguards that are not in place that should be.
That's right. The fact is that the Amtrak had been under directives for some time to put in a system, a control system, that when the train would approach a curve like that, the system would essentially say, wait a minute, this train's going too fast for the area on the track where it's going now. We're going to slow it down. The system would slow itself down, in essence. So there couldn't be that human error. That system was already supposed to be in place, but as often happens, it was delayed. Cost overruns and various issues had caused it to be delayed. So there are plenty of folks who say, wait a minute, this was a civil matter. And of course, Amtrak has paid out hundreds of millions of dollars in civil settlements with regard to this case. And so there's a very legitimate claim to be made that this was a civil case and that there were mistakes made that could have saved the lives of these folks. Whether it's a criminal matter, obviously, is what we're talking about now. I think that will be a very tough case for prosecutors to prove.
Real quick, and I think you just answered that, do you think he will be convicted? If so, the penalty?
This is one of those cases where it can easily get, the math can sound kind of ridiculous after a while because of the number of claims, 8 cases of involuntary manslaughter and hundreds of somewhat lesser charges because of all the injuries. If you stacked all those charges together one after another, you could see him going to prison for many, many, many years. That's simply not going to happen. It's not how these things usually play out. Frankly, I think it's going to be very difficult to get a conviction, period. This was clearly a tragic, horrible, fatal mistake, but I suspect the jury will believe it's nothing more than that and not an actual criminal offense.
We shall see. Starts today. We'll be watching. I know you will as well. Analyst Bruce Gordon, appreciate your perspective.
Sure.
We'll be right back.